Good morning and welcome to the Peorian. I'm your host, Paul Gordon. It has been documented in recent years that drug use among area teenagers has been rising. And more recently has come the revelation that heroin, the dreaded drug of bygone years, has become the addictive drug of choice for younger generations. And that's because it is now less expensive than crack. But it is no less costly in the way it affects its users and how it can destroy lives. The number of deaths of teens and young adults from overdose has grown. Crimes to support the habits are up. And even attempts to self-medicate to rid themselves of the addiction have killed some. Is it an epidemic? Well, some will say yes, that even one death or coma induced by heroin use is an epidemic. Others say not yet, but something must be done to keep it from becoming one. Central Illinois has had its drug problems for many years, with meth labs popping up and being busted frequently, with gang problems being blamed on drug deals. So what is being done? Many organizations are working to combat drug problems in the area, and one, Teen Challenge Peoria, is focusing on young adult men to help them escape the horrific effects of addiction. Its executive director is my guest today, and we will discuss this issue when we come back. Welcome back to the Peorian. With me today is the Reverend Randy Atchley, the executive director of Teen Challenge Peoria Men's Division. Welcome to our program.
Thank you for having me.
Please tell us about your organization and what it's trying to do in Peoria for Peoria.
Well, first off, we're Teen Challenge Peoria Men's Division, to get rid of the misnomer. Teen Challenge started out for teenagers, but we're an adult male division here in Peoria area. Okay. We've been here since October of 2000, and what we are is a residential 14-month faith-based addiction treatment program. So we deal with all addictions, not just alcohol or drugs. It's any type of life-controlling behavioral disorders. Okay. People come to us for many different reasons, but they're all in search of trying to get their life back on track.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why 14 months?
Well, this is after...
Seems like an odd number.
Well, this is after a period of 53 years that Teen Challenge has been around. One thing about addiction is it doesn't develop overnight. It takes time and to get to the aggressive state that it's at. Okay. And so there's no overnight cure. I mean, other than abstinence, which, you know, the percentage of that is not very high of those that can just quit like that. But it takes time to distance yourself from the addiction, as well as time to have the tools in place to know how to go out and function in society without the need to self-medicate oneself. So 14 months is where we're at right now with that.
Okay. Do you serve only Peoria or the entire region?
We actually serve the entire United States. Anybody can come in from any area, and we've had them in from 5 or 6 different states. But we really want to service the area more than anything. There's a great need right now in Peoria, especially in Peoria, for our services to be utilized by those. The drug epidemic is so great here right now. And I think educating people and getting the awareness out to let them know that we have a service that is available to them is our greatest challenge right now, because we are, as I call, the new kids on the block. Yeah. We haven't been around for many decades yet to be solidified in everyone's minds, or the forefront of people's minds, when they think, well, I need some addiction treatment for my son or my husband or my brother, that we're the first organization that comes to mind.
Is it strictly voluntary, or is it some of it court-ordered?
Well, even court-ordered is voluntary, because there are men that are mandated to the program, but they still have a choice to leave. It is a volunteer program, which in a sense doesn't hold a man there like an in-house would, but our only requirement is a desire to change. And so if you're coming in and you're going through the interview process to come into the program, you know, we have a basis and understanding that this individual really does want help or is in need of help. And so our job is, once they get in, to provide for them the best possible treatment that they can get during their time with us. But yes, they are court mandated as well in the program.
Even when they're court mandated, okay, you and I had talked earlier, I know that when they come in voluntarily, there is a cost up front, correct?
Yes. $850. It's a one-time intake fee, and that's the cost for the entire 14 months of the program.
If they're court ordered to go, do they still have to pay that as well?
Well, they are required to, but we have scholarships set up in place for those that can't afford it, because we believe if somebody's reaching out for help, that we need to provide that opportunity to them. So we do have some sponsorships from churches, individuals, that also allows us to let individuals in that cannot afford it, because many of them can't through their addiction.
Now, you are residential, correct?
Yes, they live on the property.
How big is your property?
We got 36,000 square foot. We currently house 28, but we have the space to get up to 50 men if once we have the need for it. Yes.
I know that it's kind of weird to say. Do you hope to get that high? In one way, you hope not to ever reach that many, but at the same time, if you can help that many, then you want to get that many.
As I mentioned, we're 12 years old, and we've had over 1,000 men come through our doors over the years with the opportunity to get their life free from that bondage of addiction. Some do leave, but many do graduate. You know, our graduation rate from those who come into the program that finish the entire 14 months is about 35%. And that may not seem like a high percentage, but as a volunteer program, 35 out of every 100 that we have annually are back out there being productive in society, working, providing for their families, their fathers mentoring their children. So it is a pretty high rate of those that actually complete as compared to those that do come in and leave for some reason. And many times those that do leave the program prematurely, they do come back in.
They can.
After 30 days, you got to stay out 30 days because it's not a situation where we want a revolving door. We don't want people inside the house to be swayed into leaving thinking I can go out and get high and come back in a week or two. We discourage that. We want to help them, and we want to do the best we can to protect them from that. So they got to stay out 30 days if they do leave.
Can you quantify from your graduates how many return, I guess, the recidivism rate?
That finish the entire program, that come back through, that need help again, that relapse, it's a very, very small percentage. I mean, I don't have statistics on it because it's that smaller percentage. I've been in the Peoria running the center there for 6.5 years, and I'd say there's been less than a handful, maybe 4 men that actually completed the entire program that has called up, within the next year or two and needed to come back in for, for some restoration. Unfortunately, it does happen. One thing about Teen Challenge is when a man graduates the program and he has the tools and he goes out there, if he does relapse, more often than not, they're more able to get back on track again after that relapse than they would have been prior to that. So many of them are able to get back on track that might and don't need to do the program again. But sometimes even 14 months is not enough time for somebody to get the help they need.
Okay. When we come back, we're going to talk with Reverend Atchley about the drug problem in Peoria, including the growth in heroin use. Stay tuned. Welcome back. I'm with the Reverend Randy Atchley, the Executive Director of Teen Challenge Peoria Men's Division. Before we talk about the drug problem in Peoria, one question that I didn't get to ask you in the first segment was, how are you funded?
We have 4 streams of funding. One was the intake fee that I mentioned earlier. A second one is we have a work experience program. We believe that men need to learn the work ethic, and many of them never had jobs or could hold jobs. So we have a company in Peoria Production Shop, that we send them out to for so many hours a week. The company pays Teen Challenge for the labor, and the men actually are getting taught a good work ethic and skills and how to get along with one another, social skills. And so that's another stream. That's actually 40% of our budget. And also we have a donor base, individual donor base, and then we have a church donor base. And then the final is an annual banquet that we have in September, and that's the final area that we do have funding in. So we put it all together, and it's able to keep our doors open.
In the 12 years that Teen Challenge has been in Peoria, has the drug problem here gotten worse or has it gotten better?
Well, from what I'm hearing and reading in the newspapers and on TV and what's going on in the community, it is getting worse. It's getting worse, and the more we try to fight it, it seems like the more we're losing ground. They're starting at earlier years now. The children are starting younger. Some are even in grade school years using for the first time.
Wow.
And that's one of the things that Teen Challenge really wants to do, is to get into the schools. 95% out of every person that comes through our doors, and we're an adult male program, started in teenage or pre-teenage years. So we feel if we target that time that they're most vulnerable, then maybe down the road as they get older, you're going to see less and less of it going on in those areas. So We get into the schools with Stay Sharp presentation, and it's pretty high energy, high impacting. And we're hoping the long term on that is going to make a difference.
I mentioned in my opening monologue that it appears heroin use has become more prevalent in recent years, including in some of the more affluent areas of the region. Is that what you're seeing? And if so, what do you attribute it to?
It's making a comeback. Yes, it is. And methamphetamine seems to be falling off more. There's new drugs on the market now as well. I just think the availability of it and the cost efficiency of it, because these younger children, you know, it's just they only have so much money. So that's why you don't see a spike in cocaine use or some of the more expensive drugs. But with the heroin back out now, it's a higher quality and it's a cheaper product. And so that's why you see more of them heading in that direction now. I call it could be a phase. It'll phase itself out and they'll go to something else. But right now it is definitely on the rise here in the area.
But isn't heroin about the most dangerous and most addictive drug there is?
Yes, it is. You know, it's an opiate, and there's many in the family of opiates. And but that definitely, I'd say 80% out of every initial phone call we take, it's opium-based from people, adults. You know, as well as maybe alcohol or other drugs involved. But the opiates always seem to be in the middle of it these days. That seems to be the most popular right now.
Would there be some people surprised to find out where some of this drug use is happening?
Oh, absolutely. You know, everybody says, not my son or not my neighbor, I never would have suspected it. So, yeah, definitely. It's no respecter of person, and anybody is susceptible to it. You know, and you could have people out there saying, I'll never use or I'll never be a part of it, but you know what? You can't discount the power and the nature of the drug itself in finding a way into somebody.
Your program is faith-based.
Yes, sir.
Your clientele, before they start your program, you mentioned to me off camera that they have to have already gone through detox.
Yes.
What do you do then in your treatment? What do you do from there?
We begin by starting a structured foundation back in their lives. Through addiction, they have no boundaries. They do what they want when they want. And when you come into a program like Teen Challenge, sure, there's rules. You know, they get up at a certain time, they follow a regimented schedule. And what it's doing is starting to incorporate structure back into their lives. Many of them are fighting the change in their life because they're fighting the schedule and what we're doing. But that's the most important on the groundwork, because without self-discipline and self-control, you'll never be able to control the urges through addiction. So it starts out by getting up at 5:30 in the morning. You know, that's the beginning of their recovery, is a wake-up time. And throughout the day, just everything that we do to incorporate back into their lives structure and self-control.
Okay. We're going to take a break now, and when we come back, we'll talk about what should be the first line of defense in the war against drugs. But first, here is Kevin Kaiser to tell us what's happening in the literary world.
As a book nerd / book lover, you know what really bugs me? It's not having jocks knock the books out of my hands or paper cuts in unusual places. It's the curricula still used by many middle school and high school English classes, where the classics of literature are shoved down kids' throats who can't feel any connection to the stories, the time periods, let alone the style of writing. Even I, your faithful book nerd, was nearly turned off of literature through repeated batterings by the classics in my youth. But I bounced back in my college years through a series of authors, which leads us to today's brand new segment called Gateway Authors. Now, what I'm calling gateway authors are great, relatively modern authors who seem to be able to hook readers at a youngish age and then lead them on to other great authors. For example, there's Hemingway. Now, I'm not as big of a fan of Hemingway as I was in my 20s, but reading Hemingway then led me to read F. Scott Fitzgerald, who led me to read Dorothy Parker, who led me to read John Dos Passos. So you see where I'm going with this. Same with Jack Kerouac. Kerouac naturally leads to William S. Burroughs and Old Ginsey, but he also leads back to Thomas Wolfe and Dostoevsky, and if you're feeling up for a bit of a challenge, James Joyce. There are a lot of other gateway authors out there who can spark the love of lifelong reading and lead you to classic authors like Dickens and Tolstoy. Think of them as a warm-up, like Ayn Rand, Don DeLillo, Bret Easton Ellis, and Chuck Palahniuk. So hey teachers, just lay off the kids and start them with something modern before you start crushing their souls with Hester Prynne and leave them with Ethan Frome damage. Now, speaking of Hemingway, check out the new release of his classic A Farewell to Arms. This is a perfect example of a gateway book. It's short, gripping, it's a semi-autobiographical story of the horrors of war and two lovers caught in the middle. Hemingway famously said that he wrote the ending to the story 39 times until he got it right. This edition collects all the alternative endings together for the first time, along with early drafts of other essential passages. It gives a reader new insight into Hemingway's craft and creative process and the evolution of one of the greatest novels of the 20th century. It also features Hemingway's own 1948 introduction, a personal foreword by the author's son, Patrick Hemingway, and a new introduction by the author's grandson, Sean Hemingway. So there you have it, another brand new segment called Gateway Authors. I am too good to you people.
We're back talking with the Reverend Randy Atchley of Teen Challenge Peoria, Men's Division. Reverend Atchley, where does the war on drugs start? In the home?
I believe it starts in the home. It starts in the home, and I believe that it carries over to the schools. Because many children spend more time with their friends and in school than they do at home with their parents, with both parents working, or a single parent household where one of the parents is out working and not around. So their biggest influences outside the house comes, through their friends in the schools as well.
What is the responsibility do the schools have then in this?
Well, I think the schools have the responsibility to put together some good programs, after-school programs for the children, especially for those whose parents are at work or working, something that's healthy, something that can provide for them that safe haven, and also just an environment that's conducive with a child's maturing into an adult properly, without having to go the route of violence or drug use.
Has Teen Challenge gotten into the schools?
Yeah, last couple of years we have a Stay Sharp presentation as part of our National Teen Challenge drug prevention / awareness. And just this past school year, we were in front of over 1,000 children in surrounding areas, and we really want to start targeting the District 150 next in the Peoria area. And it's a high-impact, high-energy event that we put on, and we have people that are leading this that have been there and have gone the roads of addiction and the road to recovery. And it's something that we want to reach out in our gift to the community. We're not charging to go into the schools, so it's free to go in. And to us, it's our gift to try to help the community and kind of work ourselves out of a job, so to speak. Even though that'll never happen, but we want to see more and more of these children making proper decisions. As I mentioned off camera, 95% out of everybody that comes through our doors as an adult male facility started in teenage or pre-teenage years. So we want to target those age groups, grade school, middle school, and high school, and just show them and try to raise awareness to them on making the proper choices of just saying no.
Can you explain a little bit about the Stay Sharp program, what it does, what you do? You mentioned off camera that you show them reality.
Yes.
How do you do that?
Well, there's video. It starts with a video, and it's real loud, and it's real gripping, and it gets their attention, and it shows different age groups, different ethnicities of children, that how they are, and then it shows them the after effects of the drugs they were using and where it led them, and it has the actual children on there talking about what the addiction did to them, and it really grabs their attention. And then after that, we get up there and then we present to the student body. And we try to make it fun in a way to them, because with the younger set, it's hard to keep their attention. But what we want them to understand is, and many of them have already experienced it in the home with their parents using, we want to educate them first on what drugs can do to you. And many of them, when you mention marijuana or alcohol or something, they start laughing because they think it's a joke. And those are the ones that you find out years later that are on the side of the road strung out or in jails because of crimes committed. And those are the ones we really try to target at these events more than anything, because they're the ones that think it's a joke. But we present a very serious, upfront, gripping presentation to let these children know that the choices they make now will affect the rest of their lives.
Have you come across in your program last year any kids who they themselves have already tried it?
As a matter of fact, we had one real good testimony. It was a child at this school, and we were at Crossroads Church, and there was an event there, and there were 250 kids there. And one of the kids that was sitting there had a drug addiction with Oxycontins, I think it was. And we presented, and then after the presentation, about 6 months later, the school contacted us and wanted us to come down there. The child actually confronted his teachers and counselors down there and said because of this presentation, he no longer uses. And the school was so impressed with it that they had us come in, and then we videotaped it, the interview with the kid, and he was just very, thankful that there was something there that he saw that could have changed his life. And we have many testimonies from teachers and counselors about the presentation itself, and we're just now getting the bugs worked out, and we really want to move forward with this, and we want to attack it aggressively because, as we mentioned earlier, you know, the drug addiction, the drug abuse is higher now than it's ever been. So we want to fight this thing right there at the beginning where it starts.
And what do you do to reach parents?
Well, this is another thing that we want to do and we actually contact parents, and if parents want to set it up, we come in and do interventions sometimes with families, you know, but we want to do more community events to get them in together, to get more at one time, to explain how you can tell if your child is using, and also what do you do if your child is using, because many of them aren't educated. They themselves may have never used or been in the environment. They don't know how to deal with it. And so this is where educating the parents come in as well, and that's what we want to do.
Okay. I hope you've enjoyed today's program and that we have helped you understand the war on drugs in Peoria and some of the warriors who are fighting it, such as Randy Atchley. Remember, you can watch this program and other episodes of The Peorian on our website, thepeorian.com, and tune in next week when we talk about a new and different dance studio in Peoria that is not just another dance studio. That will be at 8 a.m. next Sunday on WHOI TV. And don't forget to like us on Facebook. Have a good week.
Ooh.